All right, so here we go.
Good morning, YouTube. So what we're doing here today is we're unboxing a table slab that I picked up off of Amazon. We're going to be assembling and building an epoxy table using this wood slab here. This is actually teak wood that has already been treated. It's been sanded and polished. I took it out of the box here and you can see just what it looks like. A beautiful grain of wood. Teak wood, we've never worked with this particular type of wood before, but I wasn't sure what this top layer on top of this was. It's some kind of wood wax with some kind of lacquer and top coat. So what we're going to be doing here is taking this and making it our own in today's project.
Okay, so we unpackaged it. You kind of got an idea for what we're dealing with here. So this is teak wood, and it's already been sanded. The edge is kind of roughed up a little bit, but it has a nice flat top, and it's already been polished and all that other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and ruin it, because this is just teak wood that's been sliced off on the root end. And we're going to, what am I even saying? We're going to take the router, cut out some pieces of it, clean up the edge a little bit, sand it a little bit on the edges, because I want to seal this with epoxy essentially, because it's going to be an outdoor table. And then we'll see what we get, do some things with some epoxy. It's a beautiful piece of wood, so all we're going to do is give it some character, something a little bit different, even though it's a beautiful piece of wood already. But I consider this cheating, because most of the work has already been done. I just have to do some refining, sanding, route it, and pour the epoxy, sand it again. This sounds like a lot of work, so maybe it's not cheating. It is cheating though, because most of the work has already been done. So I'm not here pretending that I did all this work and it came out of the box looking like this. So this is something completely different. So we are cheating a little bit, but this is generation 1 of table making, and this is just an introduction for me. So that's essentially all we're doing here. So let me get the router, see what we're gonna do, and we'll come up with a design and go from there. All right, hang tight.
Alright, so we're actually going to get into some woodworking right now. So all we're doing here is taking the router and we're making like a river stream cutout on the top portion of this wood slab. So as I was saying earlier, it already came sanded and polished, and they put some kind of like top coat layer on top of this. And I've never worked with teak wood before, so it's a very hard wood. As I'm taking the router through there, I'm having a lot of resistance, so I'm just really taking my time, going really slow, working it all out. And this wood was either damp or the shavings are just very thin and thick. If you've ever dipped before, that's what it feels like as I'm trying to take the chisel out and trying to get this all vacuumed so that we can actually pour the epoxy. So off camera, I had to go in there, actually dig out the wood shavings, and then come back with the vacuum and get them all out. But you can see the top layer is very splotchy. We're gonna have to fix that with sanding, but I cut out the river that I kind of wanted to go for. It looks really cool. I was happy with that design. Here's kind of what the edge looks like. It's a little roughed up from the manufacturer when they actually sanded it, but was happy with how this looks. So now we're going to start the fun part, which is the sanding, and go from there.
Okay, so you guys see how the table is set up and everything. There is some kind of top layer on top of this piece of wood. When I bought this, it said that it wasn't treated, it hadn't done anything, but I don't know if it's lacquer or what it is. I did a test spot, and it's gunking up my sander, so there's something on top of it. So my plan is to sand it down, and then we're going to do the epoxy, and then we're going to do a top coat of epoxy afterwards. So the top layer of epoxy will go on there, and then we just got to sand off whatever this is on top. Something's on it. But the wood is wet, it's very moist. I don't know if teak wood is supposed to be like that, but there's a lot of moisture in it, or at least I think there is. But we're going to do that next, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so here we go. Sanding. I love sanding.
Alright, so now what we're doing is my favorite part, which is sanding. And you guys are only seeing a glimpse of the actual amount of sanding that we did on this tabletop. So we went from 120, went to 180, went to 220, and then finished up at like 340 grit. So you guys aren't seeing the entire sanding process you're seeing here, where I'm just taking off that layer. Once we did that, that took hours to do. Then I came back, cleaned it up, vacuumed everything really good in the shop, and then just came back and hit it with some wood wax. And now you can see the grain of the wood. I think it looks better after I got that lacquer or sealant or whatever that was off of the wood block and came back and hit it with a polish. It looks a lot better in my opinion. You can really see the grain, you can see the different colors. I think it looks better. So now we can move on to the actual epoxy portion of this project. So since, this wood wasn't very expensive, but it was still kind of pricey, I am using Total Boat epoxy on this. I usually use East Coast resin, which is pretty good resin, but I really wanted to use a top tier resin when I made this table, only because of the material cost of it. So I figured if we're gonna go big. So what we're doing here is mixing this up and then adding some black pigment to it. The person that I made this for, favorite color is black, so a black river table, kind of sort of. Again, this is not a river table, it's just a kind of epoxy table, I guess. If you're really interested, go watch Blacktail Studio. He makes real epoxy tables, so this is just kind of my first go at it. So steadily got the epoxy into the river or into the crevices, and now we're just coming back and cleaning it. Let this set up for about 24 hours or so. It actually hardens in about 4 to 8 hours. So another thing that we cheated on was I did not make the table legs. Obviously, you can see me unpackaging these table legs here. We picked these off of Amazon. Like I said, this is going to be a small outdoor coffee table. And all we're doing here is putting the legs where we want to. All I did was take a magic marker, point where the holes are, and now we're just kind of drilling pilot holes where the screws are going to go in. So again, I didn't build these table legs, so this is kind of cheating. So it's not a true, making a table. That's why I call this more of an assembly than actually making. So what I did here was just taking a 15-minute epoxy because I wanted the legs to be very sturdy inside of the actual wood itself. And now we're just coming back, adding the epoxy to the screws, and gonna get everything nailed in the way that we want to. The great thing about this table slab, it came with these little 4 pivot points here, so it was really easy to place the table legs. So that makes it a lot easier for me. Didn't have to measure anything out. So now all we're doing here is putting on the bottom portions of it, and we're almost ready to add the epoxy to the tabletop. So all we're doing here is wrapping these table legs because I don't want to get epoxy on the table legs. So this will help prevent making a mess, because I've done tables before in the past and they kind of make a mess a little bit. So we're just doing that as an extra layer of protection. So got this onto the floor, and now I'm just making sure everything is nice and level before I actually start the actual epoxy pouring process. And you can see the wood, in my opinion, looks visibly a lot different. So now all we're doing is adding that the Total Boat epoxy. It's nice and even, and you can really see the wood grain pop. I think the sanding, which you guys didn't see, I literally spent hours and hours of sanding on this block, and I think it really paid off in the end, because once you add the epoxy, you can really see all that wood grain come out. It looks a lot better. It's very aesthetically pleasing. I'm really happy how the little river epoxy looks on this. So even though we didn't do a lot of woodworking on this, I still like the effort that we put into this table that we built here today. So yes, it's not a true, I didn't make the table from start to finish, didn't go cut down the tree or anything, but I think the effort that we gave for this one, it shows in the end. And this is what it looks like, totally set up, the epoxy, hardened and cured. We went back, and what you didn't see was me doing the edges as well, but we did do the edges with epoxy, sealed that nice wood grain edge, and got everything sanded down. I think the sanding is really where we made our money on this table, but it looks really, really good. I'm really happy with it. But that's pretty much it. But really happy how this turned out. Our first generation teak wood coffee table. It's cheating. We didn't actually do a lot with it, but I felt like we did, and I'm happy with the end result. So hope you guys liked it. A little bit of a bonus video. The next one will definitely be better, and the person that got this was really happy with it.
Okay, so project is done. It is an absolute beautiful table. I love how this wood looks. And I am going to call this video assembling my teak wood epoxy table or something like that. I barely built anything. So what I didn't show you in the video was all of the sanding that I had to do to get this where I wanted. So the wood came treated. There was obviously that layer and they waxed it and attempted to polish it. But I wanted to seal it with epoxy and do like a semi-river kind of ish table that I've done before. So this is generation 1 and there's some bubbles and imperfections on it, but overall I'm happy with the aesthetic and how it looks. So overall I'm pretty happy how this first table came out. I got the legs off Amazon. I'm sure I went over that in the commentary, but beautiful piece of wood. We took something, shined it up, did something different with it. It was more of an assembly than building per se, but really happy how this turned out. Like I said, I feel like we cheated on this one because all I did was a bunch of sanding, and you didn't see all of that because sanding is boring, but we did do some things different. We routed it, we put the epoxy. There's some blotches in the epoxy, but overall we sealed the side of it. It looks gorgeous. The table legs look really good on it. I think this looks better than if we would have just thrown the slab on there. So we kind of give it my own personal touch, and we'll probably do more tables like this in the future, but overall I'm pretty happy how this turned out. So I like it, even though I consider this just cheating and assembly mostly. But the next piece of wood, I've already looked into some other slabs. It'll be just pure wood that we won't have to polish down and sand and sand and sand and sand. But overall, pretty happy how this turned out. Hope the person that gets it likes it. I'm sure they will. But anyway, something different. So hope you guys liked it. Hope to build more tables in the future. So I'm going to get off my butt. It's 5 in the morning. I got to get ready for work. And I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace. Oh, I just hit the table.